Not too long ago, Marcelo Flores was looked at as the future of Mexican football and a lock to make the 2026 World Cup squad. But now his name doesn't even come to mind when you think about that World Cup. He doesn't even come to mind when you think about some of the best young players in Liga MX, really. Yeah, it just seems like he's fallen off, and the real question is, what happened to Marcelo Flores? As always, if you enjoy the video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. But before we get into what happened to him, we gotta talk about why Marcelo Flores was looked at as such an important piece for the future of Mexican football. So obviously, we gotta start off with his background, because we know that he wasn't actually born in Mexico, and him playing in Liga MX was the first time that he played for a Mexican team. Marcelo Flores was born on October 1st, 2003. He was born in Canada to an English mother and a Mexican father who was actually also a professional player. I want you guys to keep that in mind for later. Marcelo Flores' dad was actually the coach for the Cayman Island women's national team. So you can see right here that he grew up around the game. He grew up around somebody who can help him nurture his talent. His dad was a coach, a former player. He knew what it took to get there. But this is important right here because they gave him 3 countries to represent on international level. You got Mexico, the country where his dad was from, England, the country where his mother was from, and then obviously Canada, where he was born and raised. Now, we all know that Marcelo Flores was hyped up because he was playing for Arsenal's youth teams and doing really well there. He was playing for one of the best, most prestigious teams in the world. I'm saying that as a Chelsea fan. But from Canada, how did he get there? Well, he went to a training camp with Ipswich Town. He impressed the coach enough to get invited to join the academy, and then later in 2019, he joined Arsenal on a free transfer. And for Arsenal, he was pretty decent for the youth teams. He was very good. I know that at the time, Mexican media outlets were hyping him up like crazy because, you know, we have a player in Arsenal's youth system, and we don't really get that many young players in these kind of youth systems. But the Mexican media was hyping him up like crazy, and we didn't even know if he was going to choose to represent us. But that's beside the point. For the youth teams for Arsenal, he was actually pretty decent. 32 appearances for the Arsenal's under 18s resulted in 10 goals and 5 assists. He was even included in the Guardian's Next Generation 2020, which is meant to highlight the best young players in the world. So you can see that the hype was real, man. He was actually a talented footballer. It wasn't like the Mexican media was just hyping him up like crazy for absolutely no reason. He has a boatload of talent, and you could see that it was there. He then moves up to the under 21s, makes 10 appearances, scores 4 goals, 1 assist, puts up some pretty good performances. So again, it's pretty decent stats here. Impressed Arsenal enough to get his first senior call-up against Crystal Palace. April 4th, 2022, he was officially on the bench against Crystal Palace, and though he didn't play, it was the first time he ever got called up to play first team football. He didn't play, he was just called up to be part of the squad. You guys get what I mean? I remember being tuned in, bro, hoping that he would make his debut. I want you guys to keep in mind, this whole time during this whole thing with Arsenal, he has not chosen which national team he's going to represent. The choice of England, Canada, and Mexico, he obviously had many options. During this whole time, Mexican media was the one that was hyping him up the most. They weren't even sure that he was going to represent them, so it was kind of funny. I even remember making TikToks about how he's the future of Mexico. When he kicks on, it's all going to be different, bro. He's going to be the best player on the national team in like 10 years. All this time, he could have just popped up in a Canada jersey in like 10 months, who knows. He actually had represented a national team before this. 2019, he received a call up to the England setup. And in that same year, he also played for Mexico's U16s. It wasn't until a year later where Canada would call him up to a training camp. However, he rejected this to stay at Arsenal. However, it wasn't until 2021 where things really started to heat up in terms of which national team he was going to choose to represent. England was basically out of the picture at this point. It was between Canada and Mexico. I mean, with his talent, yeah, he was talented, but, you know, England pop up with these prospects every time. And for Mexico and Canada, it's a bit more rare, you know what I mean? Canada called him up to their 60-man provisional squad for the Gold Cup, which put the pressure on Mexico to call him up because, you know, they thought they were going to lose the race. And he had actually been impressing for Mexico's youth teams, being one of the best players there. And then it finally happened. Marcelo Flores made his senior debut for the Mexican national team in a 2-2 draw against Chile, coming on in the 83rd minute. And then later on, he actually released a whole statement committing to the Mexican national team. And it was pretty crazy, you know, it was like an 18-year-old kid releasing like a whole statement, like a whole Instagram message, like a whole paragraph, talking about how he's going to choose to represent a Selección Mexicana. And like, that's when you knew the hype was there, you know what I mean? Like, when do you ever see that happen? It's usually just a, yeah, I'm going to choose to represent this nation. Like, no, he put out a whole statement. But I remember I was hyped, bro. I was reposting that on my story and everything because I felt like we had just won the battle for one of the best young players in the world and somebody that could really change La Selección going forward. But yeah, later on, June 11, he makes his first professional appearance for Mexico against Suriname, in which he missed a penalty. But the good thing about this appearance is that it cap tied him to Mexico. However, June 2025, he is still eligible to make a one-time switch to Canada because he has no more than 3 appearances before the age of 21. But I doubt that Canada is like super eager to have him at this point. Okay, so moving on from this whole national team thing, then he joins Real Oviedo on loan. He's going to be playing his first season of first team football. More youth teams, none of that. It's a real challenge now. In the Segunda División, the 22-23 season, a rough time, bro. He had a rough time. He only played 15 games, registered a single goal. He got 1 measly assist. With him not starting a single one of the last 12 games, either being left on the bench or out of the squad, safe to say that his loan spell was a flop. I mean, it's his first ever season of professional football. It's not to be expected, but it's something that could happen to a young player living in a country he's never lived in. Doesn't really speak Spanish that fluently, so that could have also been something that troubled him. Where do you go from here? Obviously, you go out on loan to another European team in a good division. Keep grinding, keep fighting for your place, and maybe break into the Arsenal team. That's not what Marcelo Flores thought, because September 10, 2023, Tigres announced that they reached an agreement with Arsenal for the transfer of Marcelo Flores. Just like that, Marcelo was in Liga MX purgatory, signing a 4-year contract that was worth around $2 million. This actually came after his dad himself said that he would never play in Mexico in Liga MX. His first season at Tigres was honestly kind of mid. Only 11 appearances in the Apertura and 1 goal. He picked it up his second season, 18 games, 6 goals, 2 assists, and he played a good amount of minutes for a good, solid Tigres team, which was always aspiring to win the league. He even earned himself a Copa America call-up, however, he didn't even play a single minute. That I was really against. I thought he should have gotten more playing time, considering the fact that our team looked devoid of all creativity. But you can see with that, after that season, he was kept in mind in the squad, bro. Him going to the 2026 World Cup wasn't like a far-out thought. However, since then, Jimmy Lozano got fired and Javier Aguirre has not been considering him for the squads. He has not been called up since. But why? What is the problem here, man? And honestly, I think his move to Tigres was a problem. He only had 1 season of professional first-team football, and yes, it was disappointing. But you can see right there, since his second season at Tigres, his minutes have consistently dropped, even though he was solid. But it just didn't make sense to me why he moved to Tigres, when this is one of the best teams in Liga MX who are rarely known to push out young players. To them, it's Liga MX title, the final, or the season is a bust. This is a team that makes attacking signings in this position basically every window as well. Think about it, in this position you got Uriel Antuna, Diego Lainez, Sebastián Córdoba, Osiel Herrera, Juan Bruneta. Like, it's crazy the amount of talent on this team in his position, and all of these guys have more appearances than him. Now, is it all on Tigres? No, it really isn't. They want to be competitive, they want to have a good squad, and that's what they need to do. They need to sign top quality players. And it is Marcelo Flores' job at the same time to show that he's better than those players and earn himself a first team spot. In the last 9 games, he has 1 assist. And although he's put up good performances, he's never really the best player on the pitch that you can be like, you know what, this guy should start week in, week out. In my opinion, he should have stayed in Europe, gone to a team which could nurture his talent and develop more after the lackluster season he had at Oviedo. Or if he was gonna go to Liga MX, no matter what, go to a team like Pachuca, you know what I mean? I get why he moved to Liga MX, I get why he moved to Tigres, I get the money. Again, he's only 21, there's plenty of time for him to flourish and become a great player again, or become a player that gets kept in mind for the 2026 World Cup. He still has like 2 seasons left of this. But it's just a bit concerning because he was a lock to be in the squad just like a year and a half ago. Let's not forget about that. But hopefully he can kick on and get back into this conversation. It just sucks that the Oviedo move wasn't a success, because if it was, I doubt he would have ever gone to Liga MX. He would have stayed in Europe, another team would have wanted him. But it was his first season of football, it could happen. But yeah, man, hopefully he kicks on, and hopefully he's in the squad for the 2026 World Cup. Again, we know there's a player there. He just needs to be a little bit better to get into that Tigres squad and show why he should be in the starting lineup week in, week out. But yeah, do you guys think it's over for Marcelo Flores? What can he do to get a spot back? As always, let me know. If you like the video, make sure to subscribe. Thank you.